you're pro-life. However, you wrote that there are exceptions to consider, such as the typical ones. And I don't want to say the certain word because we'll get cut off of YouTube if we do.
Okay.
So just in general, go ahead and talk about your stance on this issue.
So I am pro-life. And as I mentioned before, my son was born at 805 grams.
Mm-hmm.
So I was at work. My wife called. I got a call from the doctor saying, hey, you need to get to the hospital right now. So my wife, we weren't expecting my son. He was 31 weeks. He's measuring 27 weeks. So he's really small. And I get there.
6 months, basically.
Yeah. So I get there and the doctor says, okay, your baby's killing your wife. I said, okay. So what do? They said, we're monitoring your wife because we're going to try to save your wife and the baby. So it was a long 12 hours. And then finally my wife and they were like, we got to take him out. So we took him out and he came out breathing. And they were just like, what the heck is up with this kid? He was 805 grams. He scored high on that test right when they come out, when they scream, and and they're just like, what is going on with this kid? And
gosh, must have been because your father or grandfather was raised in Compton, right? He's got those genes,
yes,
those fighting genes.
He's got those fighting genes. So he came out, and my wife had to stay in the hospital for a week, get back to normal because everything was just going crazy because of the pregnancy, and my son was there for 2 months. And at that point, you look at that and you're like, okay, is there really an exception with today's technology? Do you really need an exception for the mother's life? Because they did a pretty fine job with my son. And I understand that, you're running that fine line and you may lose the baby, but that's through natural course, for the mother's safety. But with today's technology, those exceptions are kind of, you don't need them anymore. But at the same time, we have California law on the 27 weeks. A coworker of mine, his wife or his girlfriend was pregnant, and he's in his 30s, mid 30s, and she was 27 weeks, and they got an abortion. And I prayed for that guy. I talked to him. I said, hey, you're not a spring chicken. He's like, no, my parents will be so upset. And I said, can you do me a favor? Could you call your parents? You're the only child. They want a grandchild. I guarantee it. Every parent wants a grandchild. Could you call him and just talk to him? And he wouldn't. So, and the procedure got pushed back. And I'm pretty sure he was over the 27 week when it got done. And I don't know how they got around it. And it breaks my heart because this was not more than 6 months ago. And or maybe a little bit more, but I just was like, come on, there's a life there. And when I look at my son at 805 grams, when he was born, his head was the size of a tennis ball. His body was 11 inches. Yeah. And it's amazing. And I went and saw him the first time after, and the nurse goes, you're in for a handful. I go, what do you mean? She goes, we drugged your wife to calm her down. This guy has not stopped moving in here, and it got into his system, and he's just going crazy. You're in for a handful. And sure enough, he's a handful. So,
that's good, but he's doing great now.
Oh, yeah, he's great. He's senior in high school, does great, and he plays competitive soccer, and he loves it. So.
Okay. Yeah, well, I appreciate that this is a difficult issue as well as Second Amendment. These are probably the two most divisive issues between the parties, and there's no great answer. But I will say that in California, the legislation regarding this isn't going to change anytime soon.
Oh, no, and I will say, even if you're looking at, that he's pro-life, I can't vote for him. You know what? There is a number of things that are impacting your children more than this. And you won't even recognize your children at the end if you don't put somebody in there to put checks and balances, and all the laws and everything that's going through in California. You need to really consider that. And as you mentioned, I am pro-life, but the chances of me changing that if I got in, It's slim to none.
Yeah,
And so that's, and
I'm
like you
guessing,
said,
I'm guessing you would argue that your pro-life stance is just illustrative of how much you value kids and life, and to make sure that whatever is done is best for them.
exactly. And that's, and at the end of the day, I mean, we come down to when it's when they say, hey, I'm pro-life because it's not a woman's health, it's the body inside of that body. I want to defend that body. We need to protect that individual. And that's what I